Welcome to the session of Talking Tech Women and Girls in ICT. My name is Sabin Muzaffar, founder and executive editor of Ananke, a digital platform empowering women through awareness, advocacy, and education. And today, I'm delighted to host ITU's Talking Tech series. It gives me immense pleasure playing the host to an amazing trailblazer and holding a discussion about tech and tech careers with Sabine Holl. Sabine Holl is IBM's Vice President, Technical Sales and Chief Technology Officer for IBM Middle East and Africa, and is responsible for IBM's technical community across the region. Talking Tech is a series celebrating girls and women in tech being recorded around the world between Girls and ICT Day 2020 and Girls and ICT Day 2021. Girls and ICT Day is an international day marked on the fourth Thursday of each April. In 2020, Girls in ICT Day was 23rd April. The objective of Girls in ICT are to help create a global environment that empowers and encourages girls and young women to consider studies and careers in the field of information and communication technologies. The Talking Tech series is brought to you by the ITU, UNICC, and the Office of the UN Secretary General's Envoy on Youth and is in support of Equals, the global partnership for gender equality in the digital age. The goal of the series is to create interest and inspire girls and younger women with information about a range of ICT careers that can be had, bring before a broader audience some of the role model women in tech, and share information about their career journeys and work, offer diverse examples of how ICT is being used to support achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals and other UN goals. Another goal is to showcase initiatives that are working with girls to support them in ICT studies or future ICT careers, provide girls and young women in tech with a lead promote a girl in tech organization with which they are involved and promote it to be a broader international audience. To kick this off, I'm going to introduce you to Sabine Holl. Sabine Holl is IBM's Vice President, Technical Sales and Chief Technology Officer for IBM Middle East and Africa and is responsible for IBM's technical community across the region. She's a firm believer that innovation is driven by inclusion across all levels of technology, skill, and experience, from fresh graduation to industry leaders and experts. Earlier in her career, in mid-90s, Sabine started as a graduate herself in IBM Austria's mainframe services division, where she partnered with clients to build strategies, modernize their existing environments, and help them move into the internal internet era. And about her rising opportunities that technology brings, she quickly became a subject matter expert, delivering workshops around the world, publishing a number of books, and becoming a trusted advisor to large institutions across Europe. Sabine established various graduate programs focusing on diversity and inclusion to support national agendas and provide young women an opportunity to start their technical career. In 2019, she started to build a Women in Tech network for technical women across IBM in the Middle East and Africa. Sabine is passionate about marine life, conservation, diving, and exploring the seas of the world with more than 400 divers in past 16 years. Wonderful having you here, Sabina. My first question is, how and when did you get into technology?
So Sabine, first of all, thank you very much for having me on this Talking Tech series. It's a real honor and I'm really looking forward to these conversations. To answer your question, how did I get into technology is quite a tricky question because I don't think this was like one moment where you say, okay, I'm going to be technical. I think it was a combination of the environment you grow up and what is happening. So I think when I was a child, shortly after the first flight to the moon, in the mid-80s, the personal computer was invented. It really was a game changer because it made it available to a lot more people than just the mainframes, which were, the main computing environment. And then also things like Blue Gene, where you had Garry Kasparov playing chess against the machine, and it was the battle between men against machine where, he lost. And my father was a passionate chess player, and watching all this, and the first chess computers came into our house. I think it was like this kind of like sinking in combination with an interest in science, loving mathematics. And, that might sound a little bit nerdy, but, just solving mathematical problems out of curiosity. taking apart my first, stereo system to the dismay of my parents, who thought I might not be able to put it back together. So I think it was like all these aspects which brought me into technology and which made me decide to go into that area rather than going into just business studies, etc. That was one part. And then I think the other part was really my parents always gave me the feeling or empowered me to say, you can do whatever you want. It doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. There are a lot of great role models out there, and they were feeding me with these stories of great women from the Middle Ages to, to these days in terms of what they have accomplished. I can do whatever I want and I'm going for it. And I decided to go into this new field of computer science.
Wow, I think that was amazing because you said talking about math, sometimes it's perceived as being nerdy, but now I think it's the new cool, having an education related to STEM, I think has become the new cool. So was your path then compared to the path you're on now?
When I started, I decided to go into the, natural science field in the beginning. So in Austria, where I'm from, you have to decide in what kind of field direction you go fairly early. So I took more, as I said, mathematics, statistics, geometric drawings, these kind of things. And that really paved the path to go into technical college. There is really no limit in terms of what you can do as a woman. Where I grew up, we were only 4 girls in technical college, actually, in the class I was in. And that was in the late 80s, early 90s. So I was always like one of very few women in the field, but it was never perceived that this is an issue. There was no limitation. And I really enjoyed, computer programming and, doing all the nerdy, geeky stuff at that point in time. But my college or university was also like a combination between computer science and business. So I had from the very beginning this bridge in terms of, it's not just enough that you know how to build, develop a computer system or a solution, but also how it applies from a business perspective and what are the parameters to run a successful business. And I think that's very important. And that's what I would say everybody should have, this like bridge. And what I see when I work with young startups during hackathons, for example, or a group of students, is you have to have this multidisciplinary teams, because you can have the best technology if you don't know what it is used for or how it impacts people or business, it will not be successful. So you might be a serial entrepreneur, but you're not going to be successful. To your questions on my past from then to now. So I actually started straight out of school, basically into IBM. I'm a lifetime IBMer with a few intern jobs before I started in IBM. And as you mentioned, I started with the mainframe business, but coming from a background of Unix, open source, object-oriented programming. And I was kind of the bridge between a very traditional computing environment to the modern world. I was the youngest on the team, the only woman on the team. I really had this great experience of my very experienced colleagues taking me in and sharing their experience, but also being curious what I can bring to the table and how I can, modernize and transform these systems together, So this was a great experience, and I always had the support. And I think that they encouraged me to go for the stars. They said, you can do this, you can reach out to bigger things, just because you're young, it doesn't mean that you can't go and teach workshops or write a book, And that was really like a culture I grew up in IBM, which was, until today, something I really appreciate and what we live every day. I had multiple jobs in Austria, in Europe. I worked on projects in the US. And then I ended up in Central Eastern Europe, Middle East, and Africa, from being a technical expert to a technical leader, and now being the CTO of IBM. It was an amazing journey and an amazing experience. And trust me, I never thought I would end up where I am today.
So from what I hear, an encouraging environment at home for education and encouraging a young girl to take on STEM fields, then the environment at school, and then the environment at IBM. So do you think that is pivotal to have and to encourage women to participate in STEM fields or any field?
So I think it differs, I think I was very lucky to have the parents I have, who were really always, you do whatever you want and we will help you to achieve it. But I do think what I observed, growing my career, there are a lot of differences culturally when you're working with different countries in terms of how the role is perceived as a woman in a technical field, how the role of a woman is perceived in society. And there are a lot of challenges and they are very differentiated. And I think this is how I really got into supporting women and helping them to find their path and the courage to take it, because I realized not everybody grows up or is in an environment I used to be, so. But I want to highlight really that there is this misperception in the Western world that when you come in to live in the Middle East, for example, or in the Far East, that women have a much more difficult stand. I can tell you, I work with a lot of amazing women, probably many more than I have met in my time when I worked in Europe. I'm currently running a study with my team on women in tech, and we looked at the demographics, how many women graduate in STEM from university. And if you look at the Gulf region, for example, we have anything around above 70%. There is a humongous amount of women, and when you talk to them, they choose it because they're interested, all the way to 5% in Africa, so there is huge variety in terms of how many women take to the STEM field. And I think the challenge we as multinationals or big companies is how do we bridge the gap from academia to come into the business life and provide an environment which encourages women to say, I can balance my personal responsibilities with my aspiration in work to drive and grow my career. And there are a lot of programs we have in place in IBM, but I think every company should look after that, to see how to build this environment which allows women to balance this between family and work.
I agree with you about the Gulf and women's participation, and especially in tech. And personally speaking as well, I've come across amazing women in tech, especially in IBM. And I must applaud here, the culture that IBM promotes. I've seen women, they talk about the environment, the inclusive and diverse environment at IBM, which is something really amazing. So what job tech now?
So my current role is I'm the CTO for Middle East and Africa. It's two aspects to it. So in IBM, I'm really responsible to bring together the technical community and help them grow. And I'm really passionate about that just because, as I mentioned, I came in as a graduate and I had an amazing environment of people who supported me to grow. Now I am in the position to help them with career development program, with technical development programs, driving technical studies where I bring people from all kinds of places together to innovate, so for example, I had patent initiatives running. I have technical business studies going on, or as I mentioned, or you mentioned before, I've launched this Women in Tech network where we are currently interviewing distinguished engineers and IBM fellows. So these are the highest technical executives in IBM, all women, to understand, how their career path was. What are their recommendations, and to show them as role models to all these women we have, that they know it's possible to reach these levels and not to give up and work on it and understand how to walk to climb up the career ladder. So that's one part. The other one is obviously I work with large clients. My focus is really on looking at future technologies we are working on to make sure there is a strategic outlook in terms of what is going to shape the future of IT and help them to be prepared. During the pandemic and even before, a huge topic was around the skills of the future. We are living in an age where digital transformation is accelerating. Everybody is looking at artificial intelligence, how to make your solutions smarter and more efficient. And every customer and everybody I speak to is at a different journey, but it's not just the technology. I always say technology, you can learn, it's an algorithm. It's something you can just understand and move on if you're interested, but you need to change the culture in an organization and you need to make sure they have the right skills to go to that. So for example, data science, everybody talks about data science, but to build data scientists is not that easy. It's a combination of business skills, of technology, of mathematics and statistics, and at different levels, you need different skills. And to bridge this with business insight, is the challenge. And so we are helping our clients to understand what are the steps, how are the phases to get there. And that's really what's on my mind, is like, how can I help these clients prepare to be ready for the future, And then we have programs, around building skills in Africa, Digital Nation Africa, for example, which is a skills platform where we are running a lot of events. We are enabling people just to learn for free all the new technology to become citizen data scientists, etc. The third part I want to mention, which is really exciting, is, I don't know if you heard about Call for Code, which is a global initiative together with the UN and the Linux Foundation to call on developers to work on challenges the world faces, whether it's climate change, whether it's the global pandemic, but also spot challenges, to tackle local crisis like the one in Lebanon, where, we can reach out to the community and say, how can we help and put technology to work to support people in these difficult times, and that's really amazing to see all these people come together and work and put technology to work in a very positive manner. This is something I'm very excited about.
Some of the things that you mentioned, emerging technologies, digital transformation, artificial intelligence, and big data. When we're talking about this, we cannot ignore one really important topic of disaggregated gender data. And we need more diversity when you're feeding the data to the computers or to the machines, how that data is being fed sans or, without biases. So there are so many things at play. And there's so many things that we have to do together, which is why conversations like these are important to highlight, how important it is for gender equality and, women's participation in these fields, because it's not just about business and about the SDGs, but how to make it all work through a gender sensitive approach and a rights-based approach is very important, because these are, as I said, emerging technologies. So what do you think needs to be done on that front? How can women participate in these fields, and what do we need to do?
So there are two parts to it. I think one is really to make sure there is no bias in the systems, and this is where I think open source comes into place. Like IBM has open sourced the AI 360 Fairness Toolkit, for example, and many of the open source AI projects originate from IBM, and we work with the Linux Foundation and the entire community together to make sure everybody plays a role in it. It's not just IBM who owns it. It has to be, everybody needs to come to the table. And the bias, as you said, it can be many things. It can be gender, it can be race, it can be religion. I wouldn't say one or the other is more important. They're all important, and we need to infuse trust in it. That's also important to understand where these models come from and how they develop, and to understand how they are built. The other part is really, how do we engage women more in this? So I had a lot of conversations with women in technical roles, and I think there are a few aspects which came out of this discussion. First of all, we always want to be perfect before we raise our hand to do something. We just need to be more confident to say, we can do it. I don't need to know everything before I participate in an initiative or before I take a bigger job. I always say, if somebody comes to you and offers you an opportunity or asks you to participate in something, is because they believe you have the skills or a skill set which adds value to that team. And then you shouldn't say no, unless you really have. And this is where I think the woman comes in, when your gut feeling tells you it's wrong, then don't do it. If you can't sleep over it for 3 days or 5 days, then don't take the job. But other than that is, if other people see in you that you can do it, just go for it. And I think what's also important is we need to talk more about what we are doing. We tend to be very quiet, and we rely that other people recognize what we have done. And there are sometimes people who just raise their hands and claim that as their achievement, which is not right, And so I might sound a little bit pushy, but if I push my team and my women network to say, hey, come on, raise your hand, do this, there is an opportunity. I know it's not going to come across like this, but I want everybody to participate. I have worked, and I'm working with awesome women with great skills. We just need to be more vocal and trust in ourselves that we can do it.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. Confidence, self-assurity, I think these are really important for us women to have. So do you have any activities beyond your job that you'd like to tell us about?
Sure. I think one of them you mentioned already. So one is diving. So this is for me like my hideout place, when it gets too busy or I need to recharge, because once you can't talk underwater, but I love nature. I just enjoy nature, and enjoy watching the amazing marine life. And it's like you're going for a walk in a forest or you go on a safari. There is no guarantee that you see something. So there's always a surprise. And sometimes it's just quietness and tranquility, which helps you to recharge, just to be away from all this electronic noise you have around you. And I do have a rule that like once a year at least, I go for 2 weeks into digital silence. I go diving somewhere, ideally with no network connectivity. I do trust my team that they know how to handle things. I mean, there is a way to reach me, but usually it's pretty good. I just disappear, recharge, don't think about work, and enjoy nature. The second part is, I work in the Middle East and Africa, and I think one thing you realize is how privileged we are in terms of when it comes to healthcare. In the world we live, we are having access to anything we want at any point in time. One of my friends were living also in Africa, and we made friends with a Maasai tribe in Kenya. And the leader there is a teacher, and his biggest dream was to build a school. So we decided, because we knew him for many years, that we help him to build the school. And that's really, something I do with my friend and with a group of friends, and to help grow this. And during the global pandemic, they are all in a very difficult situation. There is no income, no food, there are no markets open. So we created a food program. And then also we started to build a permaculture forest, so they are self-sustainable in the future, growing their own crops and vegetables and fruits. So it's an interesting project, but I'm very excited to help them. And we are looking, maybe we can expand that in the future into something bigger. But this is really what we do at this point in time. And that was really triggered by an initiative or a project I worked for IBM. So we have our own foundation, which has nonprofit projects we are working on with communities across the world. And I was part of the Health Corps, which was focusing on fighting cancer in Africa, where we built some new technology based on Watson Oncology to help fight and treat cancer, and also to negotiate better prices to make cancer treatments available in Africa. And that really showed to me, how privileged we are, and how what we might believe is little has a huge impact on people. This is where I think humanitarian part kicked in, to get engaged more into these kind of projects. So I think you made a good point, like I am very lucky to have a job which allows me to do what I'm passionate about, also from a personal perspective, so I do really drive and I enjoy, and I'm extremely thankful for having all these opportunities on both sides, whether it's at work and personally, to do these kind of things.
So I think you're paying it forward by creating which is really amazing, because we need role models, we need her stories, so that young aspiring girls can look at them and emulate and be inspired, have aspirations to become trailblazers like yourself. So what do you like best about your work, about the job that you have, about technology?
So two things. One is the people. I think I work with amazing people, and we're a global company, but I think you can reach out to anybody for help, to have a conversation, to build a team, to work on a project. So I think that's really one thing which is amazing with what I like about IBM. The other part is around technologies. With the research we are doing, we always have access to the latest technology. We can always look what's coming in the future. And it's a constant learning about something, what is coming up and what is new, and to evaluate things at a very early time. And I think that's really what I appreciate, to keep this lifelong curiosity, as I call it, to learn something new, to find out about new technology, how it can impact, how it works together. And that's really what I like about my job.
So have you encountered any challenges along the way? And if you have, how did you overcome them?
On one hand, I was extremely lucky that my career kind of built up because I was extremely passionate about what happened. I was at the right time, at the right place, and I had a lot of support. But there comes obviously a time in your career where you have your mindset on something, and it might not happen either at the pace you wanted, or it might not happen at all. And I think this is where you need to think of, okay, just because it doesn't happen, you just need to get over it and move on. Being a technical person, this might not sound right, but things happen for a reason. And there might be other things which come out which are much better. And I give you an example. I was determined to take a job in the US. So the dream of every young woman is, like you go out into the big world and, working for a big American corporation, you want to go to the US. It just didn't work out, But then I got an offer to work for Central Eastern Europe, Middle East, and Africa at a time where we were just starting to build up the business. There was an expansion in business for everybody. It was the growth market. And then I always make a joke. I say, instead of the wild, wild west, I went to the wild, wild east, But to be honest, I think it was for the better. I had an amazing experience. I learned things which you wouldn't learn anywhere else. We started projects which were first of a kind, future technology, because there was no legacy we had to take care of. We could just go on a green field and start something completely new. Versus you have much bigger corporations where you integrate existing environments and solutions with new ones, but you are held back because there is so much more risk awareness in terms of trying out new technologies. So there is a positive thing and a negative thing, for both sides. But I think for me, it was really true that, just hang in there and there will be something coming which is there for you. I think that was the challenge. I didn't have any challenges in terms of somebody wouldn't give me a job because I'm a woman. I have never experienced this part. On the contrary, people said, go for it, and I was like more the one holding back because I also had this notion on, why would they take me into a position where I don't have any experience in that field, So the challenge is more to overcome yourself, to believe in yourself and to say, okay, I'm going for it and I'm strong enough to take it.
I think self-belief and confidence is one of the biggest challenges because we have to, lift ourselves from the sticky floors first. Breaking this glass ceilings is possible only when we lift ourselves up from the sticky floor. So, along the journey and overcoming the challenges, what are some of the lessons that you've learned?
So I think the lessons I learned, one was very early in my career, so when I went on my first international project, I was pretty much pushed into it. I questioned why they would take an early professional into a project to write a book or to build a solution. So I had to first ask my first line manager, and I went to him kind of with this attitude, he's anyway gonna say no. And so I came in there, I was very young, I was very scared. And so I asked him kind of expecting that he will say, no way you're going. And so he said, yeah, of course you can go. Obviously, hindsight, I would say they all have made a plan that I'm going. So, and then he said, you know what, if you don't ask, you can never get a no. Then don't accept a no for an answer. Just expect that you get an explanation why it's not the right time, And that's what I do with my team as well. I'm never going to say them just strictly, no, this is not happening. I will try to explain the reason behind why it's not a good time and what we need to look out, how we can make it happen, or why it's really not the right thing to do. And I think that was like the biggest learning. The second one was you need to understand your manager or your leader, what makes him or her successful when you ask for things. And if you want to go on a special project or, change your job, be prepared to explain them how it benefits them or what alternatives you have created for them to continue to be successful, And that usually helps very much. So you need to negotiate with your leadership team as well, if you want something. For technical people, I think it's not only money what motivates, money is important, don't get me wrong, but there are a lot of other things which are motivating, so you can really balance that out in terms of what you're asking for, how you can grow your career with stretch assignments, with new projects you want to add to your portfolio, etc. So that would be a recommendation. The last one I would like to close with, the sky is the limit. You set your limits on what you can achieve and what you can do. You need to find your allies, your network. You need to build your network, your mentors, your allies. You need to find sponsors. That's a key, to achieve that goal.
I totally agree with you. And, talking about requesting to be, onboarded on a special project, I think I agree with you. It's really important to share your vision, to do your legwork, and to convince. Negotiation is all about convincing your manager that you're right for the job. And if you're passionate about it and if you're really keen, you're definitely going to convince him or her. So since this series is about girls and women in technology, do you have any career or tech advice for girls and younger women in tech?
I would say you can do it. Don't take a no for a no. And if you want to take a job like this, go for it. One thing which is, as you grow your career, and I had this with several women, don't leave tech because you feel a different role is more easy to do. There are more structured work hours. At least from an IBM perspective, I know we are very flexible. One of my team members had to change location. She moved from the Middle East to the US. And a lot of changes are happening, and her children were in an age where they needed a lot of attention, And she said, but I can take a global job and I travel a lot, but my kids really needs me. And I said, you know what, just take the time with your children. When you're ready to come back and do a bigger role, we'll be here. We don't forget you. And this is really what happened. And I have a lot of these kind of examples, but don't give up on tech, just because you think it's hard to come back. I think it's a very rewarding part of the business. I think technical is gold, the more we go in a digitized world, technology is more and more important. So these technical fundamental skills are highly valuable. And you need to say what you need in order to manage your job. And the leaders, whether these are women or men, who need to listen and incorporate that into each strategy, into each of their businesses to handle these kind of situations. Because there are as many women as men in the professional life, and we need to make sure everybody can reach their goal. So how did you get into technology?
It all started when I was young. I edited Pakistan's only magazine focusing tech, and this was some 20 years ago, and then the digital revolution came, and that being digital and being into technology doesn't really mean that you have to be a technologist, but I could see the immense power it holds and the immense good it can do. And that's why I entered into the digital media. I founded Ananke. It's a digital platform, and we talk about gender equality and the SDGs. We also do loads and loads of workshops, IBM workshops. We've facilitated a lot of IBM workshops, pre-COVID as well. And, we included and we had another IBM Z workshop, which was pretty amazing. So the impact that technology has, especially on women, it's immense. And that's why, I'm in technology and trying to raise awareness how we can do so much good.
So what do you like most about it? What's the most rewarding part of this?
The best thing about it is the globalness of it, how we can all come together. I'm sitting here, there's somebody who can be sitting in New York, and the other person would be in Pakistan or in Bangladesh. And we learn so much about our cultures and talk about diversity. Another example that I can give is, with the Girl Summit that we concluded, we had a group of volunteers from Africa, and these girls were from Nigeria, from Kenya, girls from Pakistan, and those two from underserved communities. And through the internet, we created a team of volunteers. And within a month, we trained them and mentored them regarding communications. We introduced them to a new event platform called Hopin. These girls became moderators at the Girl Summit. And, the youngest moderator was 13 years old. So I could see the difference in each of those young women, how, technology had brought them all together, made new friends, taught them how to network with amazing trailblazers like yourself. There were some amazing speakers. So they networked with them, moderated sessions. And this is the magic that technology can create.
Well, this is really amazing. In Pakistan itself, you have a huge population, a lot of people going into technology, like you could just say, I focus on Pakistan only, but you reached out to Africa and brought all these different young women together in your summit. Technology at its best, but also to build these role models and encourage each other. And share the challenges. I think what I have seen is like people don't want to be alone in something. We are all in this together, and we all have our experience which we can share, which encourages also, to continue the path everyone has picked. So that's amazing. So do you have any message for other young women you would give in a technical role?
The one message that I think we all need is having empathy. And it's not just women in tech, generally speaking, and being fearless and not being afraid to fail. Because if you have these 2-3 things, be it in technology, and technology envelops all spheres of society now. During the COVID and post-COVID, I think we will be more digitized than ever before. So we need to have that empathy in place, especially technology can sometimes take out that sensitization that we all need to have, that humanity. So it's really important to instill, very actively and very consciously instill that empathy in us, and, being fearless and not be afraid of anything, and just go out and work.
No, that's amazing. Thank you so much. It's great talking to you. And if you, at any point in time, want me to talk to the ladies in your organization, please invite me. I'm more than happy. And I used to go to Pakistan quite a lot. So hopefully these days will come back.
No, I would love to. So that wraps up our session for today for Talking Tech, Women and Girls in ICT. Thank you so much, Sabina. It was truly an immense pleasure talking to you about so many amazing things technology can do. I really enjoyed our chat today. Thank you so much to our viewers as well for watching.